Want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Instead of just going through a list like a lot of other people have, I want to make this a little bit of a game. So what we're going to do is, I've only picked one character per fantasy series here. And I want you to go through, I'm going to say the name of the series, and then I'm going to say the character that I picked. And I want you to guess. So press pause, think about it, guess. I want to see who has guessed the most right. Some of these are going to be a little bit of obvious. Some of these are going to totally blindside you. Let's see if anybody can get close to 10. So let's start with my number 10 favorite, and this is from The Wheel of Time. And who's it going to be? Is it going to be Rand? No. It's going to be Matt Cawthon. Matt Cawthon is my favorite, not just because he has an awesome first name, which he does, but I love this character. This is like the Han Solo of fantasy characters. And if you were to ask me my favorite Star Wars character, Han Solo is going to be number one. Of course he is. I love this guy so much. He's flawed, very flawed. So I'm not going to pretend that he's not, but I love flawed characters. And you're going to see that as we go along in this series. So what I like a lot about Matt Cawthon is that he is like the definition of actions mean more than words. Because his words are, he's kind of a little bit of an ass. The way he talks to people is not kind a lot of the time. But time and time again, Matt Cawthon is always there to save the day. He's frustrated about it sometimes. He doesn't want to, but he does. This reminds me of if there was like a dog running loose in the neighborhood, but you really had somewhere to be. For me, what I do is I grumble. I'm like, man, I gotta get home. I gotta do this thing. I have work to do. I've got something going on, but I'm gonna pull over. I'm gonna help this dog. That's Matt Cawthon in a nutshell. He's constantly not wanting to do these things and be a hero, but he is. But he does not want to be a hero explicitly. What he wants to do is just to go gamble, drink, have fun. But he gets caught along in this. And the fact that he's so capable means that he has to be thrust into this limelight time and time again. It's very, relatable to real life, this character. And he's got these flaws too, because I hear a lot of people say they don't love Matt, and the big reason they say is because of how kind of mean he is to another character in this book. I don't want to say who for those that didn't read this, but you know who I'm talking about if you've read the series. And yeah, they're right. He's not a perfect character, but I don't need you to be a perfect character for me to like you. Number 9 is going to be from The Lord of the Rings, and it's going to be Samwise Gamgee. That was an easy one. Everybody got that one, right? I hope you did, because I feel like he's a lot of people's favorite character, certainly mine. And there's going to be spoilers here, but is it really spoilers for The Lord of the Rings? I feel like when a book has been out for many, 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 many decades, that you can't really spoil it anymore, so we're going to go for that. Sam's the hero of this story. This is not a unique take. I feel like a lot of people, when they hear that initially, they go, what, really? Yeah, Frodo's the hero. But anybody that's watching this video knows that Sam's the real hero here. And I like me a good hero. Like I just talked about, I like flawed characters. Sam's not it.Maybe he has flaws. Maybe some, Lord of the Rings expert's gonna come in and be like, well, Sam really, but to me, he's such a cool guy. I love so much about this character. I love that he is just, kind of like Matt. He doesn't want to be on this journey. He is because he's a good friend. And he feels it's his duty to. But what's he want to do? He wants to go back home and he wants to go be a gardener. I love that kind of character. I love how humble this guy is. And I love that ultimately he saves the day. When Frodo wavers, when all these characters, try to get him to go do other things, what does he do? He wants to be by Frodo's side. He wants to try to keep him, on the straight and narrow and get the job done. And I respect that from him so much. And he's just such an amazing person that everybody should try to live up to be more like Sam. And in the books, I loved after the book series is done, all these characters go off and do these different things. People are going off to doing these important roles. What does Sam do? He wants to go make his village better. He wants to go run things and just be the best person he can be and to try to rebuild. That's awesome. Sam rocks. Number 8 is from Malazan, and I'm going to get more specific here. It's from Malazan Book of the Fallen, and there's about a 0% chance you're going to get this one because there's about 100 different characters that I could list here. So I'll give you a hint. It's kind of two people, and if you didn't get it then, I'm just going to say it. It is 𝐻𝐻𝐢 and then in Bug also. This is the best comedic duo that I've ever seen in any story of all time, not just fantasy. And I'll go further. It's the most I've ever laughed by characters in my entire life. I love everything about these characters, and it's not just, you know, this like lowbrow kind of humor. It's not just like the specific style. They're just funny, and it blows my mind that Steven Erikson, who can write these dark, serious, philosophical stories, on one hand, can then turn around and introduce these two goofballs that have such legitimately amazing humor with crazy good play on words. You know, I want to sit here and tell you, yeah, here's some amazing lines that they said. You know, here's this awesome zinger or something that you'd really understand their humor. But the humor is based on their play back and forth. You know, the humor is like a whole page of dialogue between these two. And you know, I don't want to sit here and just read you a page of dialogue that you're not going to get because you don't know any of the context. But when you get to this point in the story, I think it's book number 5. I know it's book number 5, actually. It's just, it will blow you away by how hilarious these characters are. For me, you know, I looked it up immediately and I'm like, how do I get more of these characters? What books exist where I can get more of this style humor? And I was led on to Discworld, and that started me on my Discworld journey. But sadly, even though I love Discworld, you know, nothing in Discworld is as funny as these two guys. All right, number 7 is going to be from the Stormlight Archive. And well, I'm going to give you a hint here because you're not going to get this unless I give you some sort of major hint. And it is not one of the major characters. This is a side character. And it is not a good character. That's all I'll give you, okay? It is 𝐶𝐫𝐿. I'm probably saying that name wrong. I'm probably butchering it, but I read these books. I did not listen to audio, so I'm saying 𝐶𝐫𝐿. And oh man, I love this character so much. And more than I love this character, I love the background about what this character is and who they are. So warning, I have to talk spoilers here. I'm going to put a spoiler tag right here so that you can understand if you're coming into this video. But to understand why I love this guy, you have to understand the spoilers I'm about to say. So 𝐶𝐫𝐿 is this awesome character where he made a wish. And in this story, there is somebody who you can make a wish to, and you're going to get it, but not exactly what you thought you asked for. And in this, he asked for the power to save the world. And the power that was given to him was that every day that he wakes up, he can either be the smartest person by far that's ever existed, or the dumbest person that's ever existed, or the million shades of gray in between. And it's amazing to see how this character has coped with this scenario. So one time in his life, he woke up to be the peak. It was the greatest he could ever be. And he immediately went and, like a maniac, started writing on all the walls, created a code that only he would understand on how to decode this so that he could write faster. He created this grand scheme and plot that all the rest of the stories in this whole world are falling into place that he has constructed over time. And he knew that he would not be smart enough to remember this later on, so he had to write in a way that, you know, future selves would be able to understand this if they were like a little smarter than normal. And it's just incredible. And a lot of days he wakes up and he is below par. I love this dynamic so much. Sanderson knocked it out of the park. It really resonates well with me. And I love also this dynamic that he's also put a system in place to prevent him from being in charge and making horrible decisions if he's dumb for the day. You know, he has this, you know, guard that's always with him that will quiz him every morning. And if he fails the quiz, he doesn't get to make decisions that day. It's so cool. I love everything about this character, and I can't wait to read more. And I know that this is going to be a very central character as the story goes along. All right, number 6 is from Discworld, and I'm going to have to give you a hint on this one too, because it is not obvious. This is not one of the main characters, and the big hint I'm going to give you is that this character has, you know, works in the same industry that I work in. So if you watch a lot of my videos, maybe that'll tip you off. But this character is Lord Havelock Vetinari. This is the patrician of the main city, 𝐒𝐤𝐥, and it's where most of the stories take place here. And he's called the patrician, but really he's like the dictator. I love this guy so much. He's the most capable leader in any story that you'll ever read. You know, he will make, you know, Machiavelli look, you know, calm in the dynamic here and the way that he rules things, but he does it in a way that he's so smart and capable that everybody kind of likes him. They understand that, you know, he is a despot, but he's the best kind that they could hope for, and he leads them in a very good way. He's like this former assassin, so nobody ever wants to mess with him. Just the way he talks and so sure of himself, but also not mean, is just, it's very funny, and I love so many of like his catchphrases. You know, I love that, you know, when he wants a meeting with somebody, he doesn't tell them, you know, what you would think of as like a big leader of like, you need to come meet with me right now. But instead he sends somebody to say, you right now have an appointment with the patrician. And these characters are like, I do? Okay, I guess I do. And when he's done with meetings, he'll often say like, he has this really funny phrase of like, don't let me detain you. Which is so funny. Like, I want to say that in my real life, but it would not go over well with the kind of people I meet with. But it's so funny because it's like this play on words where, you know, you got this hint that if they kind of mess something up, you know, he might actually detain them. It's just awesome. He's like the greatest tyrant in any story, and every time he shows up in a book, I am just glued to the page. All right, number 5 is from Mistborn Era 1. And the big hint I'm going to give you is this character is not somebody with Mistborn powers. And that character is 𝐒𝐨𝐳. I love 𝐒𝐨𝐳 so much. You know, I'm going to get some hate on this from a lot of Mistborn fans, but, you know, I view a lot of the characters in Mistborn as pretty one-dimensional. Now, I love Mistborn. I'm not trying to hate on Mistborn. But a lot of the characters are what you get. And they don't, you know, undergo terrible growth. 𝐒𝐨𝐳 very much does. He is very multifaceted. I love the different dimensions that this character is. I love that this character in the beginning is, and through the whole thing, you know, he just lives his life through his values. And I think it's really laudable. Like, so much of this character's positions on things. You know, I love that, you know, when Tindwyl died, that this emotional, huge grief that this character goes through, and this depression, and how that changed him as a person. You know, I love how he's trying to make sense, you know, of all religions, you know, and he's trying to, you know, pull a little bit of every single religion that exists in the world. That's a fun concept that, you know, I haven't seen played with in a book before. You know, I love this balance where, you know, he is, on one hand, he is this kind, selfless person, but on the other hand, he is this rebel, you know, soldier, and doing so for like the right reasons. You know, I love that he, you know, transitions later on in the series to, you know, really questioning everything that he stands for. And by the end of this series, the fact that he's transformed into somebody that has, you know, he's found this balance, and that he's really figured out that what he becomes in harmony, that he's like the definition of that. And it's just a wonderfully written character that I can't get enough of. And number 4 is from A Song of Ice and Fire, and this one's obvious. I feel like everyone's going to get this one. This is Tyrion Lannister. I love this character so much. And when I say Tyrion Lannister, I mean book Tyrion Lannister, not TV show Tyrion Lannister. Even though I did like that character, it is not the same character. It's almost the opposite character, and that, you know, in the show, he becomes kind of like a good person. In the books, he thinks he's a good person, but he's not. You know, he excuses his like monstrous deeds constantly. But when he, after, you know, his trial, and he becomes a monster, you know, he becomes more and more villainous as this story goes along. But this is all balanced with the fact that he's extremely well written and hilarious. He is the comic relief to this story. Every good darker fantasy needs somebody like this, and he is that. But I also love this complexity to this character because of The fact that he's a dwarf, the fact that dwarves are not looked well upon in this world, and that his family has this immense power and expectations of their family members that makes his family dynamics very intricate, and I love them. That he's constantly trying to prove himself to his father, but can never be able to do that because of what holds him back, and for other reasons as well. Not just his stature, but the decisions that he has made in his life, in part because of who he is and how people have treated him in his life. This rivalry he has with his sister, this kind of, mixed relationship that he has with his brother, that there's a lot of like brotherly love here. And that he's constantly, that he's the most capable of the family members, but can't achieve what he wants to because a lot of things are holding him back. And he's holding himself back in a lot of ways as well. He's just a wonderfully written character, and I really need this next book to come out, book number 6, so that I can get myself some more Tyrion POVs. All right, number 3 is from Gentlemen Bastards, and this one's easy. It's Locke Lamora. He's everybody's favorite character, right, from the series? He's so good. You're gonna find a common theme here that I love characters that can make me laugh. And man, he can make me laugh, but not for the same reasons as the others. He's so cocky and like this darker humor to what he says. This, a very like a lot of like cuss words sort of thing, which I normally don't like love. I think a lot of times it can be too heavy-handed. Here it's like extremely heavy-handed, but it fits. I mean, Scott Lynch knows how to cuss. He nails it in this story. I love this dynamic of Locke being like the world's greatest thief, but also being like very flawed himself. And it's just, he's a great character through and through. I love the relationship that he has, this buddy relationship that he has with Jean Tannen. I love this family relationship that he has with like the younger members of his little crew in the first book. This idea that he's like this amazing actor that is essentially like pulling off these crazy heists, not through any sort of muscle, but through trickery and being smarter than everybody else. Just such a well-written book. And I think what really elevated this character for me is that I listened to it on audiobook. The audiobook narration for this is incredible. It's the best fantasy audiobook performance, right up there with The First Law. And nothing comes close to Gentlemen Bastards and The First Law. So yeah, if you haven't read this book yet, check it out on audiobook. You will not be disappointed. Number 2 is from The First Law. And there's only 2 people this could be, but my favorite is Sandin Glokta. The other is Logan Ninefingers, but I am partial to Sandin Glokta. He's so good. He's this crippled torturer who already, I just love that dynamic about, you would expect to have some torture, be the super capable person, but he's, very crippled. I love this dynamic that he has where he used to be this, war hero. I think he was a war hero, but he was some sort of like fighting champion. But he's constantly trying to realize that that's his past life. But now he can barely walk around, but he constantly has to. This inner monologue that he constantly has is so entertaining. I don't know that I would love this character as much if this was in the third person, but the fact that you're constantly seeing this hilarious, and not like cutting jokes, but hilarious in his cynicism, and this dark perspective he has in the world. This is a very bad character. But he's so bad and he's so well written that you can't help root for this character. I don't know if that's like something that says something about me, but man, I can't get enough Glokta. He's incredibly intelligent, but he's evil, and it's just so good. I love this inner fight that he has, where he wants to, in some ways, help certain people. But, he's got this kind of relatable tension constantly through him. He's the most well-defined character in the series, and I love this series, so I'm not trying to diss on anybody else. But there is a reason that so many people have Sandin Glokta in their top list. I think a lot of people have him as their favorite fantasy character of all time. And number 1 is from Realm of the Elderlings, and there's only one choice here. This is Fitz Chivalry Farseer. It's not even close. I love this character so much. Robin Hobb is just a genius when it comes to character writing. And most of these books are written in the first person from the perspective of Fitz Chivalry. We got, 9 books devoted to this character. And that's a lot of time to be spending with the character. And when you have such masterful writing, it's going to come out in these incredible ways. This is again, a flawed character, not because he is bad in any way. He's a very good person, but he makes horrible decisions constantly. And that's real life, right? Like, who's going to claim that they're going to be out there just making great decisions all the time, especially when they're like a child and like a teenager. I know myself as a child and teenager, I made horrible decisions. And if I was thrust into this like important dynamic with like kings and queens and all these things, I can't tell you how much I'd mess up. That's real life, and Fitz Chivalry just nails it. I love that we got to grow with this character. This is the reason that he's number 1 on my list. You saw this character, you got to grow up with them. He starts as a child. He ends up as an older man. And you go through this whole realm of their growth with this character, growth that has a lot of trauma. This character is constantly having to pick themselves up again. This character has a lot of redemption. This character has a lot of getting knocked down again. You're going to cry for this character unless you're just like this heartless human being. And the depth of emotion that you're going to get from the top of the top to the bottom of the bottom constantly is just so wonderful. I was, more than any other character, I was sad to be gone from their story when I finished this series. And I'll never forget them. So that wraps it up for me. Let me know in the comments how well you did. Did you get 10 out of 10? No, you're a liar. But did you get 8? That'd be pretty impressive. Let me know what you got. And let me know who your favorites are down in the comments below. So thank you so much. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier patrons, Sky, Russell, Ron Reich, Romeo Mike, CJ, My Book is Lit, and Jamie.